As requested, I worked in a front for a Mexican cartel. I saw someone request this a while back. I now have the free time to do AMA if anyone is interested. Guessing my story would be an appropriate way to start this. So here it goes. I worked in a restaurant that I later found to be in relation to the Mexican cartels as well the coke trade. I began questioning the place when I found that I could easily lift a full keg over my head without breaking my back. Speaking from past experience, I could lift one a bit and move it, but these way too light. I finally realized what was going on when my boss one day was acting really weird and he asked me to load all the kegs into a rented box truck. I knew something was up, but I did not care enough to risk my job by questioning him. He told me to follow him out to the shed the staff was never allowed in. He unlocked the door to find about 10 to 15 more kegs sitting in here. I helped him load most of these. One of the last ones fell off the back of the truck and the top fell in. It had a few keys of coke in it. He offered me a pack and told me that I could never speak of this to anyone. He said I was to say that I came to work and found the door locked. His car wasn't in the parking lot. If anyone asked, I didn't talk to him that day, he just never showed up. He never showed up after that. I continued working there due to them paying really well. A few months after the truck incident they closed down. I stayed in contact with a few people and last I heard my boss was found dead in the desert out south of Tucson. Also rather recently another restaurant in my town was raided and closed after being found to be used to transport coke. I believe this restaurant to be the one that replaced mine in the cartel's transport business. So AMA.
My dad's experience with the cartel. My dad grew up in North Las Vegas in the 70s just when the cartel was coming from California and Mexico. He always told me about times he heard about the cartel killing and gang initiations. But this was his personal experience. School was just out and he was about 14 to 15 and loved skateboarding. He was sleeping over at his friend Trevor's and went skating with Trevor and his brother. It was about 1 or 2 in the morning and they were walking back to Trevor's house because they were skating all day and decided to walk back. While walking back they passed this big silver van and thought nothing of it because that was a fairly common type of car back then. As they walked past the van, the door slid open and all my dad could see was the barrel of a 12-gauge shotgun. His reaction was shouting "Shit! Shotgun!" And him and his friends took off and split up. My dad hopped a fence and hid behind a bush. As he was behind the bush a dog came out of this random house and started barking and growling at him. My dad started moving along this cement wall trying to get out. He stopped towards the end of the fence only to hear the van drive past. He heard the man with the shotgun say, "Fuck, the gun was on safety." My dad later met back up with Trevor and his brother and ran home. My dad told me that this man killing him and his friends would have been his initiation, which would have gotten him into the cartel. My dad. I am a former drug mule for the Mexican drug cartel. AMA. Crime, justice. Hey, Reddit, I was an active drug smuggler for a period of 6 months. I mostly operated within the States, but from time to time I would smuggle from Mexico. During my time I was caught a total of 3 times. First time by DEA, second time by Border Patrol and third time by state police. You might be wondering how I'm not in prison. Well, it's kind of a long story, deny everything. After the 6 months I worked my way up the food chain. Instead of being the mule, my unofficial job was to recruit mules. I had the option to smuggle it myself, but I'd rather hire someone else and just give them a percentage of the sale. Going head to head with the feds is not something I want to do again. It was safer this way. Being able to provide proof on this was kind of tricky. It's not like I was put on a payroll, I did my best. The mods will provide a statement, anything outside of that you'll have to take my word for it. Proof. Refer to comments. Edit 1. I will still be answering questions, but at a slower pace. I'm not done yet, so don't worry. I'll get to you eventually. Edit 2. I want to address something a lot of you have been asking. As a mule I was caught, yes. 3 times exactly. You're asking why the cartel would allow a mule to explain himself. Well, that's because I wasn't your average mule. In addition to smuggling, I also had clients, buyers, customers, whatever you want to call them. These clients of mine were powerful people who would buy a lot, frequently. I was the middleman between the cartel and clients. My very first sale, I sold $50,000 of product, simply by introducing the 2 parties. Of course I only made $1,000, call it a finder's fee. I was lucky enough my clients would only speak to me to set up buys. So if I went down, then there goes a huge client. It was after this initial sale that I was strongly discouraged from smuggling. When I first thought about doing an AMA, I originally wanted to represent myself as a low-level boss, but it's difficult providing viable proof for this line of work, so I went with the mule instead. Edit 3. A lot of you are asking for my best stories during my time. Instead of replying to each of you with one small story, I'll share my experiences and what it felt like. Q. How and why did I get into this business? A. The city I live in is extremely corrupt. I'll be honest, I was living at home, working a minimum wage job, paying too much money a month for a decent car. I was struggling financially overall. I had a hunger for money and power, ultimately leading me to find someone who could get me in, a recruiter, if you will. Q. Why did I continue doing it? A. There was one afternoon I went to the bar to enjoy my day off. Couple drinks in, I felt this unbearable pain in my stomach, nothing I've ever felt. I don't know why, but my first instinct was to call my girl best friend. Sure enough, she wasn't doing so good. She was crying and in a lot of emotional pain. Hearing her in that state hurt. I never wanted to hear her cry like that ever again, so I continued smuggling. I'd give her money to help her out, and because of me she was able to put a down payment on a car. Q. What was it like the first time? A. I wasn't scared or nervous, I'm not really sure what I felt. I guess if anything I was excited, because if it went well then I was going to go get $3,000 for 2 days. The job was to drive from point A to point B. My recruiter called me once an hour to check up on my well-being. My girl best friend would also check up on me every so often, so I was okay mentally. I had to drive for X number of hours and it was exhausting. I didn't like to stop except for gas and energy drinks. When I finally arrived to my destination, I was put in a hotel room where I had to wait 10 hours. This hotel was in the middle of nowhere in a different state, so there was nothing to do. When the merchandise was finally unloaded from the vehicle, I immediately drove back home. I remember feeling happy and relieved. I turned in the car and got paid. Q. What happened the first time you got caught by the DEA and how did you walk away? A. So the job was to drive from point A to point B as usual. There were a total of 4 cars. One lead car, followed by me, a buyer behind me and my bosses in the back. This job was delicate. This was the second time I introduced my buyers to my bosses. They had bought 2 bricks of coke, but wanted it higher up north. So basically they were paying me to transport it farther up north. The lead car was purposely speeding in case there was any cops, they'd pull him over and not me. This was just an added precaution. I want to say a good 10 hours in, the 2 cars behind me start losing distance between me and the lead car. I call them and they're 2 hours away. Well fuck. I talk to the lead car and we make the decision to go on anyways. Another 8 hours in, I pull over at a gas station and unexpectedly run into the lead car. He tells me the 2 backup cars are 4 hours away from us. He wants to go to a restaurant and wait for them, but I insist on driving forward without them. He agrees. Couple hours later we finally arrive to our destination. Now this is where the stupid luck comes in. There's 2 hotels right next to each other. My buyer wanted me to stay at the same hotel as him. I think it was a let's have each other's back type play. I wait for him to get a room and then I walk across the street and get a room at the other hotel. At this point it's about 2,200 and I'm tired. I buy a case of beer and go to my room and wait for my boss. He arrives to the hotel around 0300. Job well done, right? Not so fast. My buyers are only buying 2 bricks. The other bricks are being bought by my boss's clients. Around 1100 my boss tells me he's going to go meet his clients. He tells me to stay put with the car, and as soon as he calls me to head over there with the car. 1 hour later I still don't receive a call, so I decide to head over to the restaurant downstairs and grab a bite. One of my clients joins me and we start talking about business. 30 minutes later we finish and I walk back to my room. I insert my keycard only to find it doesn't work. No big deal, I'll go to the front desk and have them give me a new one. I walk into the lobby and immediately notice a police officer and a DIA agent. The DIA agent was wearing a Kevlar vest with DIA in gold on the back of it. They both turn and look at me, and I just kept my poker face and approach the front desk clerk. He gives me a new keycard and I leave. I remained as calm as possible and started thinking how I'm gonna get out of this one. I walk upstairs to my room and I look around. Across the street I notice two SUVs parked in a way that if shit went down they were in the position to respond immediately. I go with my gut feeling and ditch going inside the room. I walk around aimlessly to see if I was being followed, and sure enough I notice a civilian car following me. I walk towards a business, and right before I walk in, the same car pulls up and the same DIA agent I saw earlier steps out. Agent 1. What's your name, kid? Me. I don't have to answer that. Agent 1. What kind of car are you driving, is it here? Me. I'm not answering that. Agent starts getting frustrated and his partner gets off the vehicle and immediately makes me put my hands behind my head. Agent 2. Look kid, we're investigating a car break-in and the suspect fits your profile. Me. They called DIA for a break-in. Agent 1. We're not DIA. We're City Name Police Department. Me. Those two unmarked SUVs are yours, your firearm is in your waistband and you're driving a civilian car. Police department doesn't operate that way. Agent 1 and 2. Agent 2. What kind of training do you have? Me. I was a former cop. They take my ID out of my wallet and tell me to stay put. They say they're going to see if I had any warrants. After about 10 minutes they hand me my ID and let me go. I take a bus back home and nobody knows what to think of it. The cartels started pointing fingers at everyone, they even suspected me of being an undercover DIA agent. It was later revealed my boss's ex ratted us out. To this day, we don't know what happened to my boss. We've tried looking for him in jail, prison through online database but to no avail. My best theory as to what happened is this. The meeting between my boss and his clients was a setup. The DIA thought he would have the coke in his car and moved in. Once they realized he didn't have the coke they scrambled back to the hotel to try and salvage their operation. They ended up towing the car. My buyers went into hiding and so did I. The DIA never went after me again after this ordeal. Update 2021. Well, I don't expect anyone to see this, but I went to prison for my crimes. Hey guys, don't forget to like and subscribe. Bye now.